Wait. Fuck. What? I think I'm having a conversation with myself. This article is something I wrote for Medium.com. Your sexual partner selection is shaped by your opposite sex parent in childhood. This article involves information from a psychology journal article entitled Sexual Imprinting in Human Mate Choice. The full reference will be under the video here, along with the authors and all of that information, if you want to read it yourself. Anyway, here we go into the article. Introduction. Well, there are the classic examples of the female stripper who has daddy issues and the womanizing man who has mommy issues. However, those are broad, mostly useless statements, even if they are sometimes accurate. Now, people are endlessly complicated, and each individual deserves more attention than a single comment. So let's take a journey through sexual imprinting in human mate choice and see how we feel. The problem assessed in the referenced journal article was whether phenotypic matching or sexual imprinting has a greater influence on human mate selection. Mate selection dependent on similarity can be influenced by phenotypic matching. This is also known as homogamy, which is selecting sexual partners based on genetic similarity. However, the referenced authors suggested that sexual imprinting, which is selecting sexual partners based on parental influences, now they suggest that may have a stronger role, and so that's what they explore here. Personal experience. My mother was a beautiful woman in heart and appearance. She was brash, radiant, forceful, hilarious, pretty, fun, and wild. When I was a teenager, her regular alcohol consumption became a dark thing. She used to have a drink or two for fun each night. That slowly became a bottle of rum every night, and our family fell apart. In my early 20s, as my relationship with my mother deteriorated, I sustained nothing but unhealthy relationships full of good sex and lousy everything else. Drinking, screaming, lying, and cheating were the norm. As I look back, it seems clear to me that I was attracted to women that had my mother's worst traits. A few of them may have looked like her, but they acted like her. All of them. My mother's abusive alcoholic torments ignited a strange fire in me that led to a sexual attraction to similar women. I sought out and was attracted to women that behaved as my mother did without even realizing what I was doing. I know more about myself and psychology now, and it seems to me that everyone's parents, especially their opposite sex parent, have a profound impact on sexual selection, for good or ill. Now, back to the article. Sexual imprinting and phenotypic matching. Adopted daughters, their rearing families, and their husbands were examined to count out the possibility of genetic similarity between daughters and parents affecting homogamy. The authors described sexual imprinting and phenotypic matching. Sexual imprinting is a process that occurs in childhood where the observed features of the opposite sex parent are used as a model for mate selection. One supporting reference was a study done by Bateson that suggested an early fixation to a set of family characteristics will shape mate preference during adulthood. Now, the authors of this study described one of the limitations of that study as the difficulty of separating the effects of phenotypic matching to self and sexual imprinting. Now, phenotypic matching is the use of one's phenotype, which is observable expressions of genetic traits, to select a similar mate. One supporting reference was done by Blaustein that showed animals have been found to prefer genetically similar mates. And the authors described a logical fallacy first described by Archer in 1998. Discriminatory altruism on the basis of phenotypic matching is uncorrelated with the likelihood of sharing an altruism gene, reducing phenotypic matching to kin recognition, not mate selection. And so that's the authors of this particular article arguing that phenotypic matching is closer to kin selection or recognition rather than mate selection. So it's less involved in sexual selection than sexual imprinting. So let's get into the methodology of the article study here. 3 sets of tableaux were created for each of 26 families. The first set had a photo of the daughter on the left. The second had a photo of the daughter's adoptive father on the left. The third set had a photo of the daughter's adoptive mother on the left. All 3 sets had a photo of the daughter's husband plus 3 unrelated men on the right. Now, 242 undergrad students were used as the judges to rate these tableaux. So around 10 judges at a time sat in a room as one tableau at a time was projected on the screen. So as you're looking up at the screen, you see on the left-hand side, you have a picture of the daughter's adoptive father, and then the third would be the daughter's adoptive mother. And then on the other side, as I mentioned, there will be the husband and the 3 unrelated men. Now, the judges were asked to select a match based on the physical similarity between the left side photograph and one of the 4 right side photographs. And so, to be clear, there is only 1 photo on the left at any one time. And so then there's 4 on the right. Now, which on the right is most similar to the 1 on the left? So I apologize if I mixed that up earlier. So the match options for each family being the daughter to her husband, adoptive father to the husband, and adoptive mother to the husband. So you're trying to figure out who on the right looks most similar to one of these 3 pictures on the left, as they're shown. The judges then rated the match on a scale of 1 to 4, 1 being most similar, 4 being least similar. The daughters from the 26 families were also administered an EMBU test in their homes. This test assesses an adult's perception of their parents' rearing behavior on 3 scales: rejection, emotional warmth, and overprotection. Finally, the perceived degree of similarity between the daughter's husband and her adoptive father were correlated with the EMBU test results. So let's see what they found. Results of the study. In study number 1, judges matched the daughter to her husband 31.1% of the time. In study number 2, judges matched the adoptive father to the daughter's husband 37.7% of the time. In study number 3, judges matched the adoptive mother to the husband 27% of the time. When those results were plotted against the mean results for the EMBU test, the authors found that fathers who were most frequent matches to their sons-in-law had shown more emotional warmth toward their adopted daughters. Okay, so moving on to the discussion, the results of this study led the authors to suggest that 1, there was a significant resemblance between the daughter and her husband. 2, there was a higher degree of resemblance between the daughter's adoptive father and her husband. 3, there was a strong correlation between emotional warmth from the daughter's adoptive father and the resemblance between the daughter's adoptive father and her husband. To the authors, the results suggested that homogamy may be achieved more by exposure to the opposite sex parent early in life. The authors also note that the results did not disprove that phenotypic matching contributes to homogamy, which is sexual imprinting. They go on to describe the confounding complications of the familiarization effect and the significance of the olfactory system on mate selection. So obviously mate selection is a complicated issue. And just for clarity, homogamy is defined as mating with individuals who have similar characteristics. So again, that is a bit different from sexual imprinting. So I apologize for the contradiction. Now, what I do with psychological studies like this is use them to introspect. So this study may or may not approve to some people, but it certainly does to me. And so I'll read you my conclusion. It appears that selecting sexual partners based on genetic similarity and parental influence are both part of the mate selection process. However, parental influence can have profound negative effects if the relationships are dysfunctional. You see, sexual imprinting is based on familial relationships, which is based on experience. And so things can go horribly wrong. Genetic similarity is a choice or compulsion based on predetermined similarity rather than childhood experience. In my case, I did not date women who looked like my mother so much as I dated women who acted like her. I was drawn to and attracted to chaotic women who had little control over their emotions. Women like hurricanes. Now, currently, today, my fiance, who I have a healthy relationship with, and our first baby is on the way, is also a lot like my mother. Now, side note, I wrote this article quite a while ago, and our baby is now born. She's 3 months old, so this article is a little bit old. Anyway, back to it. In regards to my fiance, she is full of my mother's good traits and almost void of her toxic ones. My fiance has the sense of humor, empathy, and loving attentiveness that my mother had. I am blessed to have such a healthy partner in my life. Undoubtedly, my relationships have been affected by my mother in good ways and bad ways. For most of my 20s, I don't think I had the slightest idea of what was going on. I believe this is one reason that understanding our nature and the elements that drive and shape us is essential. If we can share our knowledge, we may be able to avoid excessive harm. Of course, we learn best through our own mistakes. However, with the psychological and biological knowledge that we have at our fingertips, maybe we can ease the learning experience. There is nothing wrong with being in a relationship with someone that reminds you of one or both of your parents. However, be careful. If it is the abusive, addicting aspects of your mom or dad that drives you into sexual relationships, think carefully about what you're doing. Now, I'm a writer and a musician. I'm not a psychologist. I read and write about things like this to better understand myself and make choices within my life. And so, if this does not apply to you, well, then maybe I'm not speaking to you. The article that I wrote on medium.com regarding this subject received plenty of good feedback and plenty of angry feedback because it was heterosexually based. Well, fair enough. Then I guess if you're not heterosexual, maybe it doesn't exactly apply to you, but I am, and it does. When chaos and heartache reign, be steadfast and keep your heart open. Your heart will mend, and you will be able to avoid the grip of your demons. The light of your attention is a beacon in the night.